The paper is questioning Charlotte County Sheriff Bill Prummell and Punta Gorda Police Chief Tom Lewis on their questionable choices they've used to use force. A sheriff just executed a guy unloading his clip into a guy with a knife, 8 shots to the main body, killing him on the spot. They didn't use pepper spray or a taser or rubber bullets or a beanbag gun. They didn't have car cameras or body cameras to prove they needed to use it. That's why they don't have that technology, so they can just do what they want to. Punta Gorda Police Lee COEL used the uncontrolled weapon, a dog, on a guy for 2 minutes, which permanently disabled the guy on one side of his body and costs $130,000 in hospital bills, which the police didn't pay for, even though they are the ones that caused the damage. It is corrupt to the core here, and it's got to stop. Lethal Force, a Necessary Evil? By Ann Easker. Staff writer. You meet lethal force with lethal force. It's a phrase Charlotte County Sheriff Bill Prummell has said a few more times than usual this year. His deputies have shot 2 different men in crisis during domestic violence calls, with very different outcomes. Near the end of February, Jacob Talby, 41, was shot 8 times while intoxicated and threatening deputies with 2 knives, according to the sheriff's office. His injuries were fatal. More than 2 weeks later, former Deputy Kasey Roberts, 36, was shot once in the leg after trying to cut his own wrists and throat with a kitchen knife, before charging at a deputy, the agency says. He was admitted to the hospital with a shattered femur. Under investigation, the 2 shooting incidents to start the year come after no law enforcement officer with the larger agencies in Charlotte and Sarasota counties fired a gun in a resistance situation in all of 2016. Under the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office policies, consistent with other agencies, deputies are instructed to use only the amount of force necessary to stop whatever force is being used against them or another person. If I had an individual with the same height, weight, and size coming at me unarmed, I don't have the right to pull a gun out and shoot them, said Charlotte Sheriff's Lieutenant Kenrick Roguska, commander of the training unit. However, if an individual is armed and deputies reasonably believe lethal force is needed to protect themselves or others, they are authorized to kill. That's true no matter what the individual's state of mind is. Lethal force doesn't always result in death, but officers are trained to shoot at a person's center of mass. Roguska said the reason is that under stress, officers normally only hit what they are aiming at 20% of the time. People think we can shoot guns out of hands, or shoot people in the leg, and it's not realistic, Roguska said. An arm or a leg is a smaller target, and we're more likely to miss. CCSO officers train using a role-playing scenario. Photo provided by the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office. An outside opinion. Philip Stinson, a professor at Bowling Green State University who specializes in criminal justice and police behavior, said it seems like the shootings were justified. He said law enforcement has been trained for many years that someone brandishing a knife within 21 feet is capable of killing them. Interestingly, I am aware of no research that supports this proposition, Stinson wrote in an email. But, knives are very dangerous lethal weapons. Officers confronted with an angry/upset person brandishing a knife sometimes have to make a split-second life or death decision as to whether to use deadly force. As to the 2 different outcomes, he said, the answer is that police officers in street encounters are bad shots, they often miss their target in real shootings. He said 8 shots doesn't seem unusual or suspicious to him, given that law enforcement typically carries semi-automatic pistols, which carry up to 22 rounds of ammunition. A study by the Force Science Research Center showed that even inexperienced shooters can fire 3 rounds in 1 second. It's hard to say whether there could be a better response for mental health crises, Stinson said, because situations are all unique, and the lack of mental health care for many individuals makes law enforcement the first responders for those in any sort of crisis. Policing is violent, and with the deinstitutionalization of the mental health system in this country, coupled with the inadequate levels of funding for community mental health centers and health insurance access issues, police officers are the front-line response to many people with mental health or substance abuse crises on a daily basis all over the country, he said. The current system, or lack thereof, puts a huge strain on law enforcement agencies. A systemic problem. The effects of that strain are made clear from a study by the Treatment Advocacy Center, which found that the risk of being killed during a police encounter is 16 times greater for people suffering a mental illness than for other civilians. Mental illness is believed to be a factor in 1 in 4 fatal police encounters, but its role is often overlooked due to inconsistent or lack of reporting. It's really hard to figure out the numbers, but no matter what you look at, it's just way overrepresented that the folks that are ending up in these police shootings are suffering from mental illness, said Director of Advocacy Frankie Berger. Berger said overwhelmingly, individuals don't get a decent intervention from the mental health system before their behavior requires law enforcement to step in. The study, overlooked in the undercounted, the role of mental illness in fatal law enforcement encounters, explains, after a half-century of closing public psychiatric hospitals without replacing them with community-based facilities, a trend called deinstitutionalization, several 100,000 people with mental illnesses, such as schizophrenia and severe bipolar disorder, cycle chronically through the streets, hospital emergency rooms and, most frequently, the criminal justice system. When individuals with severe mental illness become disruptive or dangerous, law enforcement is forced onto the mental health front line because there is no alternative. Berger said the laws in many states require a person to be dangerous before anyone else can intervene. Then, they are met with law enforcement who are often not adequately trained to help. The best solution would be to address the problem at its root, with increased access to inpatient care, expanded outpatient services, and reforming laws that create barriers to treatment for high-risk individuals. In Florida, funding is one major issue. The National Association of State Mental Health Program Directors Research Institute says Florida is dead last among states on mental health funding. The Treatment Advocacy Center states that a minimum of 50 beds per 100,000 people is considered necessary to provide minimally adequate treatment for individuals with severe mental illness, and Florida has only 13.1. The likelihood of incarceration rather than hospitalization is 4.9 to 1. In its study, the Treatment Advocacy Center states that best practice for reducing fatal police shootings in mental illness situations is a straightforward approach: treat the symptoms and avoid the encounter altogether. However, they also list techniques for law enforcement to improve interactions with the mentally ill, including de-escalation training, co-responder teams of deputies and mental health professionals, and helping stabilize people with chronic mental health crises. CIT training. The deputies in both incidents had been through Crisis Intervention Team, CIT, training, an international program designed to equip law enforcement personnel with tools for responding to people suffering from mental illness. Local agencies, including CCSO, the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, the Punta Gorda Police Department and the Northport Police Department all participate in the training. For CCSO, 231 deputies and 60 corrections officers have been trained so far, about 2/3 of the agency. For Northport, 61 of about 100 officers have been trained, and in Punta Gorda, 7 of 33 officers have been trained. Roguska said it's the goal to get all members of the agency trained, but the class only takes 25 people at a time, and it can be difficult to pull that many deputies off patrol for the whole 40-hour week, Monday through Friday. Charlotte Behavioral Health Center is one organization that offers the training. Chief Operating Officer Jennifer Ernst said some areas in the country have mobile crisis response teams to help with mental health crises, but in Charlotte County, law enforcement is always the first on scene. Any kind of crisis, law enforcement will respond, Ernst said. We're expecting them to be mental health professionals instead of just police officers, because we don't have those emergency services. To better equip law enforcement, the CIT training provides some tools to better understand mental illness. Jim Cox, the lead trainer and CBHC Community Services Program Manager, said the training covers the effects of trauma and medications, substance abuse, child and adolescent development, schizophrenia, autism, Baker Act, verbal de-escalation techniques, and more. We don't necessarily expect the police to be counselors, but we do try to help them be able to identify issues when they're called to a domestic, Cox said. Punta Gorda Police Corporal Mark Bala, who's been through the CIT training, said it helps law enforcement understand the perspective of someone with mental illness. If I'm dealing with a schizophrenic person who's hearing voices, I know that I'm going to have to go slow and give them time to respond, because they're hearing voices at the same time they're hearing my voice, Bala said. Bala said when officers respond to an incident, it's not always clear why a person is acting out, but the techniques taught in the training are helpful for all types of calls. Just slow down and just try to understand from their point of view, letting them know that we do care, Bala said. That's probably a couple of the big ones, letting them know we care about them and we are there to help. Not everyone understands that from the police. Other options. In Northport, Chief Kevin Vespia said mental health has recently been a major focus of the police department. In addition to the CIT training, a Northport mental health task force recently formed, consisting of members of the police department and area mental health professionals. The focus of the task force is to identify resources available and provide services to citizens with mental illness before their condition rises to the level of a public safety concern. If people get the help, they won't ever need to see us, Vespia said. We don't want to be there. The task force created a brochure identifying local resources, which officers hand out any time they perform a Baker Act, including a list of mental health professionals who will respond to a person's home to ensure post-care is maintained. According to the most recent statistics available, Baker Acts carried out by the NPPD officers from January to October 2016 was 39.25% lower than the average for the same time period the 3 previous years, a fact Chief Vespia believes is the result of the department's efforts within the community. If one of our citizens isn't taking their medication, eventually that will escalate to where it's a public service call, Vespia said. By putting that info out, where they're getting the treatment, and law enforcement doesn't have to be contacted. In Pinellas County, the Sheriff's Office has taken partnership with the mental health community to the next level by creating a mental health unit, consisting of 2 teams pairing a deputy with a mental health professional. The unit was created through a competitive grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance's Smart Policing Initiative. Sergeant Kelly Bush said the teams respond to in-progress calls for citizens in crisis situations and follow up to make sure citizens' needs are being met and they're aware of community resources. Before the mental health unit was staffed, we had a handful of deputies that were CIT trained, and they would respond, but they wouldn't have time to do the follow-up, Bush said. Sometimes we go back 4 to 5 times per month. A regular patrol deputy doesn't have time in their day to stay up on that. It's not call, it's as much time as you need to help that individual. During calls to individuals in crisis, the mental health professional can do on-the-spot therapy and a more in-depth evaluation of what the client actually needs. We were traditionally asking some of the least qualified people to evaluate someone for a Baker Act, Bush said. Bush said it's possible that the unit will help cut down on violent situations where force is needed, but the mental health professionals are not allowed to go into dangerous, unsecured scenes. Instead, by cutting down on mental health crises overall, the hope is that there will be fewer individuals becoming a threat to others and themselves. Our hope is that something like this would reduce those instances, but can I say for sure? No, she said. So far, the unit has seen positive results. Some clients have started calling the mental health unit directly, cutting down the number of patrol calls. The deputies in the unit are excited and feel like they're actually making progress with clients they come into contact with, she said. We've had some clients that were in and out of crisis very frequently, and just by us checking up on them, talking to them, letting them know someone else is there, that frequency is reduced, Bush said. But each client is going to be different. Email, aeasker@sun-herald.com.
Hey, Sheriff, we have a question about why your office, your intelligence division, is investigating private citizens for criminal investigation that happen to be activists that are overseeing your department. Why would you have your intelligence division investigate private citizens? We have done... for life hating so much. Sir, we don't hate anyone. We love freedom and we love American people. And government is out of control. That's why you're seeing such a revolt nationwide. Why can't you just answer, why is Susan Edwards, your intelligence division, investigating private citizens? This should not happen.
Are you here to apply for a job?
Possibly I might be applying for a job, but that's irrelevant to my question. Why would you ask that question?
Well, enjoy the fair.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Excuse you?
Excuse me, sir.
So those of you that haven't been on a bike before,
Sheriff's getting a little too pushy. You work for us, Sheriff. Just keep that in mind. At one time we respected you, but not with that type of attitude.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Sheriff County COPWATCH with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if some, if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave a, let's say, actually, yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But, you know, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, you know, at least I can do it. You know, 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea, too, that we have is, you know, if I got, you know, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. You know, 47,000 of you so far right now. You know, $1 a day. I mean, $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.